Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Game of Thrones podcast. I am your host, Carmine of RedTeamReview, and I'm joined here once again by Captain Westeros himself, Roger.
Yes, I wasn't Thanos raptured, turned into dust.
You weren't dusted?
Dusted.
Guys, welcome back to the Game of Thrones podcast, and today we're going to be discussing Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 2, A Night in the Seven Kingdoms, or of the Seven Kingdoms, actually. As always, we're available on SoundCloud and iTunes, so consider checking us out on those platforms, and if you do check us out on iTunes, then please leave us a review. It'll help out a lot. Also, by the way, guys, just so you know, we did do a podcast episode for Episode 1 of Season 8. That's on Preston's channel. I'll leave a link in the description below to his channel, so you can check that out. And, please consider leaving a comment and questions, whatever. You know the drill. We'll probably get to it in the next episode.
So do you think when they made the title they were trying to make a pun? Obviously the title is supposed to refer to Brienne, but is it also like a night of the Seven Kingdoms because everybody's spending a night like talking to each other? Do you think that was just like by chance?
That's what I was thinking, but then some guy in the comment section called me out because I thought the title of the episode was A Night in the Seven Kingdoms. I was wrong. It's A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is also a play. So this is one of the major callbacks in this episode. Night of Seven Kingdoms. Isn't that also one of the stories of Dunk and Egg?
So it's the collection. So when we when they take there are three Dunk and Egg stories that George R.R. Martin has written. The Hedge Knight, the Sworn Sword, and the Mystery Knight. And he collected them into a book called A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And of course, there's a connection between Dunk and Brienne. I guess it was eventually announced that he spilled the beans that Brienne is a descendant of Dunk.
Wait, he did spill the beans. That's confirmed because he's always alluding to it. He said whenever anybody asks him, and he always says I'll answer that in the future installments.
I mean, I'll have to check the quote, but then again, like I said, George R. R. Martin says all sorts of stuff, so I'm not I'm not exactly it's not 100% confirmed, but it seems like something that would be true. Mm-hmm. But she, there are a lot of parallels between she and him. So it's, for instance, she gets her shield repainted just like Dunk does, and all sorts of things,
So Preston, I don't know about you, but I really liked the episode. I gave the first episode a 7.5. I would give this one an 8, a solid 8. What did you think? On a scale from 1 to 10?
I would go the other way. I was not a fan of this episode. I would give it a lower rating, down in the 6.
Down in the 6, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. How could you? This episode was so. I will say the last third of it was beautiful, and I understand what a lot of people were saying about it feeling like this episode, like the first third of the episode, really felt like it was DLC for episode 1. Now, for those of you in the audience who aren't gamers, DLC is essentially like when you buy a video game. Sometimes they'll try to sell you shit for the game. It's kind of like going to a burger place, buying a burger, and then them trying to sell you extra for the lettuce, tomato, and pickles and all that stuff when it really should be on the burger. Kind of like that. This really felt like the first third, especially Jaime's trial, really felt like it should have been in episode 1. So I get that, but the last third of the episode was also so beautiful. I loved it. Just them hanging out, so good. Why would you give it a 6?
I didn't. I felt it was a lot of wheel spinning, and I thought a lot of the conversations, I was annoyed at how much history they were getting wrong. Everybody was addressing and talking about the wrong things, and so I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. They were trying to build into this. They were trying to make everything seem nostalgic, I felt like this was, in many ways, a last episode, because they were, and they're bringing nostalgia for something that was never there. There weren't any good times. They're not referencing back to any good times, and yet it feels like they're trying to reference back to good times. Like, these are old friends all hanging out together. Well, actually, these characters don't even know each other.
In comparison to simpler times, I think what they should have really honed in and I think they did hone this in. It was a much simpler time back then. Back when everybody hated Tyrion because he was a part of the Lannisters and he was a dwarf, not because, he's siding with Daenerys. And, back when Jaime had Cersei's love and that's all that really mattered. That was simpler. It's easier to love a woman than it is to, like, betray her for her rival and, like, so on. Like,
I don't get it. I don't get how they, he even says, oh, by comparison, it was a simpler time. No, it wasn't. Like, first season, Jaime pushed somebody out of a window in the first episode. Zombies attacked and killed people in the first episode. Like, Tyrion was upset about being a drunken, unloved, guy who has problems with his father because his father, like, made him participate in a gang rape of his wife in the first episode and first season, because he reveals it.
I think what he's talking. I think Jaime push. I think what Jaime says that I think it's before he pushed Bran. I think it's before they all came to Winterfell for the first time. So that's probably what he's referring to. But let's get into it. Let's get into the whole thing. So Jaime's trial. What were your problems with Jaime's trial? Because I thought it was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it. You were having a problem with history.
Well, why didn't they bring up the Mad King and the wildfire and his motivation for
that? Was my issue. Yeah. I liked it, but like, you're right about that. Like, there are certain. It comes back to that one situation where Tony Stark and Captain America would never have had to fight each other had they just sat down in a room for more than 5 minutes and hatched it out. Same with this situation here. Like, Dany would not be as pissed off at Jaime if he just repeated what he said to Brienne back in season 3 when they were in the baths.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other problem is they kind of blew their load last season by having everybody meet in the Dragon Pit. Like, Dany's already come face to face with the man that killed her father. She did in the Dragon Pit. So
no, actually, she did before that. I don't think she knew that. Remember, Jaime charged at her with a lance.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which they didn't bring up as well.
They didn't bring up as well. So they kind of blew their load last season by having this, oh my God, they're finally going to meet. Well, they've already met like twice before. And then all the things that, you really think they're going to get into the dark side of history and like resolve some things. And then they just kind of gloss over it. He says, Jaime says things like, oh, well, I did it for my family and I wouldn't change anything. Well, you wouldn't change anything. Like, I thought like Jaime's whole plot is a redemption arc where he becomes a different, better person. And now he's saying he's going to do everything exactly the same.
So I think this is the problem you're having. I think you're trying to compare this Jaime to book Jaime, because in the books, Jaime's redemption arc is much better. In fact, isn't there a moment in the books where Cersei calls for help after the High Sparrow has imprisoned her, and he just burns the letter?
Yes.
Right. So that was planned to be like a yeah, fuck you, Cersei moment for Jaime, and we never got that in the show. The only fuck you moment we ever got for Jaime in the show was at the end of season 7 when he looks back at King's Landing and he just leaves her. Now, actually, not even that. In the finale of season 7 where he's trying to leave and the mountain blocks his path, and he's wondering whether or not Cersei's going to order his execution then and there. That was supposed to be a fuck you moment, but I felt the books did it better. So you're right. But at the end of the day, for what it wasn't bad. He wouldn't change. When I think when Jaime says I would do it all over again, I think what he meant was he would fight for his family all over again. He wouldn't like...
He'd brazenly kill Jory Cassell for no reason on the streets of King's Landing again. Like, I'd stab Jory Cassell in the eye and kill him all over again for no reason. It was just all weird. And then all of the freaking praise of Tyrion was so annoying. Everybody, over and over. There's honestly a third of the episode is dedicated to saying Tyrion is this wonderful guy that's so smart and needs to be protected. He's the brain trust. It was just so, I don't know. It was a lot of little things like that just built up and just pissed me off.
Once again, I keep thinking that your main issue here is you keep going back and comparing Tyrion in the show to Tyrion in the books. Tyrion in the show never raped that woman in Essos when he threw up on her.
No, I'm talking about like Tyrion being a horrible, horrible hand for Dany.
Yes,
like,
that is
he's
true.
dreadful, and yet it's still everybody's like, oh, he's so smart. The way Tyrion's mind works. Like, what are you talking about?
I blame Dave and Dan for that. I sincerely blame he's never had that moment he had in season 2 where he was tricking the small council. Remember that moment?
Yeah.
That was great.
Like just show don't tell is the idea. Like everybody's saying Tyrion's smart, but give me a piece of evidence to show me that Tyrion's smart. I don't have one besides him building a saddle in season 1. Somebody pointed out to me that he didn't even build the chain in the show, and I was like, oh right, there was no chain
in season 2 during the Battle of the Blackwater.
Yeah, it's back. Yeah, so he built a saddle. Mm-hmm. That was pretty smart. That's it.
Did that happen in the books? I don't remember that part.
Building the saddle for Bran, I think so.
I don't remember that part, but I mean, I feel as though ever since Tyrion showed up and he said to Dany, "I'm the gift." You haven't really been the gift. I mean, you haven't really been doing much. Remember him in season 6? How he was absolutely useless for most of that? He was supposed to run Marine, and he just sat around with Missandei and Grey Worm killing time. Actually killing time on screen. So, the praising of Tyrion, I just can't help but feel bad for him, because he is trying, but at the same time, you do have a point. He's not a great hand of the king, or hand of the queen, for that matter. But Jaime's trial, for what it was, I did like it. I did like that Bran's one-liner, "The things we do for love." And then the look on his face, No, sure,
but they did kind of, they did just kind of do that again, right? Like, wasn't that the same thing as what he did to Littlefinger? Mm-hmm. Like, you're just gonna throw out random lines that are gonna make people uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
So
you didn't like the trial. You thought that there could have been more discussed.
Yeah, I thought it was over way too quickly. I thought they glossed over the important issues, and I don't know, it came to resolution just a little too easily, and just not in a way that I thought that was satisfying for either Daenerys' character or Jaime's character.
I have to agree with you for some extent, but for what it was, I mean, for me it was okay. I do agree with you 100% on the fact that they could have discussed the whole Mad King thing and why he did kill the Mad King. I felt if this was George writing this, that would have been brought up in a much more brutal way. So afterwards, Jaime goes and meets up with Bran, and he says something to Jaime about, how do you know there will be an afterwards? So it really hones in my whole idea of there being a time reset.
Right. I mean, absolutely. And I can understand like Jaime going to him and saying, none of this makes sense. Why did you save me? Well, it's all part of, the master plan, the Bran time travel master plan. Which I'm fine. I'm actually fine with Jaime's discussion with Bran at the tree. Bran. Yeah, and it does seem interesting that he didn't call him out on the falling from on pushing him out the window.
And what did you say about the location here? So in the first season, the very first time we ever see Ned Stark, he's in the Godswood, and he is polishing his sword in front of the pond. And I remember that there's a pond because I actually saw the first episode commentary, where they say that the water in the pond is not water, it was ink, because ink reflects better. Or oil. Oil or ink, I forgot which one, but it was not water, because the water wasn't reflecting the right way.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be, I guess in the book there's these thermal pools that are all around, and so people actually go swimming in it, and the water is actually warm. And I think Hodor goes swimming in these pools. I guess it's I forget if it's the end of season 1 or the beginning of season 2, but in the books they play Lord of the Crossing over them. They put down like a big log, and then the Frey boys and everybody play their game and toss everybody into the water, and everybody loves it. But yeah, so they had the thermal pool in the first season, and then all of a sudden it just kind of vanishes, or at least it's gone by at least by the wedding. I forget if when Lewin dies, if it's there. I have to check. I'd have to check. I'd have to rewatch the episode. But somebody just pointed it out to me in one of my comments, and I was like, oh my god, he's right. Like what happened to the thermal pools? And then somebody said that at the beginning, when you do the flyover for Winterfell, the pool is there. So I don't know.
Is it?
So
I don't. Is it? I don't think it is. I don't know, because you pointed it out in your video. I'm like, hey, yeah. I was gonna say maybe it froze over.
let's see here. No, there's a pool. No, there's definitely a thermal pool in the flyover. For the in the opening. Yeah, no, it's there. It's just not there when people go out and walk out to it. And then people are like, well, maybe it froze over, and I was like, I don't know. I think if it's a thermal pool, it's not going to freeze. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
So what did you think of the whole that small brief Bran Jaime scene?
Yeah, no, that was fine. It was interesting. Mm-hmm. I actually wished Jaime became a little more indebted to Bran, or something. Mm-hmm. Like that Bran had a little control over him or something. Maybe saying, well, you got to do what I say, or else I'm going to reveal this information or something. Something a little more edgy than, oh, you're off the hook. Go enjoy yourself. Because it does seem like Jaime just got away with everything.
Well, I like I said, I really enjoyed Jaime this episode. I don't know why. He just really had all the right beats for me. The trial aside, with those mistakes, not mentioning the Mad King or bringing it, I was actually watching it. For the first time, I was waiting for that to come up. I'm surprised it didn't.
Because somebody specifically asked me, like, how is Jaime? They're like, come on, like, how is Jaime? Like, how is this plot armor going to get him out of this one, right? Like, there's so many things waiting for him. And so, and I remember my answer being, well, we aren't sure who knows about Bran's window situation. So Bran could spare Jaime, and that's what we saw. And then I specifically said, well, if I were going to get out of the you killed my father thing, I would have to bring up the fact that he was going to burn down King's Landing, and Varys can vouch for me because Varys is around there and knows this stuff too.
Right.
Could have given him something to do.
I feel bad for Varys because Varys has... I don't know why the actor is even there, or the character is still there. I mean, Varys and Tyrion are one of the two main guys you need to have in this team, and they've barely given Varys anything to do besides looking around, doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, considering that this is a guy who orchestrated a master plan to bring about the War of the Five Kings in order for Dany to be able to invade. I mean, this is the level that he's at, right? Like,
wait. Littlefinger's the one that kind of started it, right?
Well, that's the thing. Is both Littlefinger and Varys were both trying to pit the Starks and Lannisters against each other in order to start a civil war. However, because Khal Drogo was delaying, Varys wants to slow everything down. And that's the only thing. So Littlefinger's trying to go fast, and Varys is like, whoa. Like, I want to get to the same place, but you're going too fast. But yeah, no, I mean, he meets with Illyrio in season 1, and they talk about how they're orchestrating this whole plan, that they want a civil war. They just don't want a civil war now. But yeah, I mean, largely this Varys's like manipulation has to do with the death of Sir Hugh. So during the hands tourney, Sir Hugh happens to die because he's not prepared, and he gets killed by the mountain. And so Varys uses that death, that random and untimely death, to be like, you know what, he was murdered. And so Ned completely thinks that Cersei told the Mountain to murder Sir Hugh in order to cover up Jon Arryn's murder.
Right.
But all of that was a lie. Varys made that all up in order to pit Ned against Cersei.
I mean, it could be that Varys didn't also was convinced that the Lannisters were somehow behind it.
I mean, you know,
because Littlefinger. The reason I point to Littlefinger is because he's the one that told Catelyn that the dagger was Tyrion's.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was trying to get there too. You know, he's the one that sent the letter up to that directly said that Jon Arryn was murdered by the Lannisters.
He had Lysa send it.
Completely lying, you know, because we all, you know, the real issue is that you know, there was you know, you got to mix some book and show kind of stuff, but was the fostering of Sweet Robin. They were trying to take Sweet Robin away. And so Lysa had a motive, didn't know what to do, and so Littlefinger says, "Well, why don't you kill Jon Arryn?" In the show, they switch it to, "Oh, we can be together if you kill Jon Arryn."
And quite frankly, I think the show we're way off. By the way, we're gonna get back to it.
Yeah.
I think the show did it better because Lysa did want to be with Littlefinger. She was obsessed with him, and therefore that makes more sense. And honestly, if you really think about it, even though Lysa is crazy, both book and show, the idea for the first show adaptation, the idea of having Jon Arryn killed just because they're going to foster Sweet Robin with either Tywin or Stannis is kind of ridiculous if you think about it.
Well, I mean, it was all this paranoia about like coming war, and he needed, you know, I think he was George R.R. Martin was trying to establish something to do with like warding and things like that, and warding being this really important thing. That's you know, it's not as important later on, but like in the first book and second book, like the warding of Theon and the warding of Sweet Robin are these incredibly important events. And you know, I guess, you know, he keeps going with it later with you know, the warding of Quentyn and things like that being very important, but you know, it's like this essential part of life, you know, as on par with like marriage, like warding, considering that like the War of the Five, the Robert's Rebellion's like alliance was a Ned Robert like warding bond.
Yeah.
a Jon Arryn Ned, you know, Robert warding bond, you know. So, you know, he's establishing all of this stuff, the importance of warding.
Damn, we went way off.
Let's get back.
Cool.
Let's get back.
It's cool. It's whatever. But yeah, after Jaime and Bran, we get Jaime and Tyrion, and then Jaime and Brienne, which once again I liked. I was a huge fan of those scenes. I also like the callback to how Tyrion wants to die at the ripe age of 80. His belly full of wine and the girl's mouth around his cock. I love that motherfucker. I love him so much. I don't know why. I always love that scene, especially because
you love the T-shirt slogans.
I love the T-shirt slogans. I don't think you can put that on a T-shirt. Like, holy it's in the first season when he leaves the Vale with Bronn and they come across Shaga and the Mountain Clans.
Yeah. It's like, how do you want to die?
I'm sorry, I just love it. But yeah, your thoughts on Jaime wanting to serve under Brienne, even though I assume he outranks her?
No. I mean, I don't think he outranks her, just in the sense that, you know, he's now on the bottom, right?
Right. But I also at the same time,
Sansa's the Lady of Winterfell, so, and Jon, I guess they somehow established that Jon is now Warden of the North.
Yes.
Like, that's the title they're going to give him. Like, okay, well, we don't know what even in the books, we're not sure what Warden of the North or Warden of the East or any of these titles means, you know? Some people say, well, it means you're in charge of like the armies, and you're like, does it? You know, like no one really knows. But, you know, it does seem that he's the general, he's the military general, while Sansa is the one doing the logistics of the castle. While Dany is going around having conversations about Tyrion. I don't know. But yeah, he seems to be in charge of the army. So it would be whatever Jon thinks where he should be.
Right.
And so,
but why would he? Because in the preview we saw him there with Brienne when she's like, "Stand your ground." But why is he on the front lines? He has no fighting ability with his golden hand. Like, he's fucking useless. He would be better like commanding troops, maybe on the front lines, but behind the front lines, like not.
Why is anyone on the front lines? They have a castle, but
this is true.
No, I guess you know how it is. You know, I was thinking about this when we got to the map room scene, about who gets to be in the map room.
So there was a young woman in there. I don't know who. Did you notice her? I saw her 3 times. I noticed her. Like
Alice Karstark.
Was that Karstark?
Yeah.
Why is she there? Like, if you look on the map with the stones and all that, they have the Vale forces are there. Okay, Stark. I think I saw unsullied like helmets, and I think the Dothraki are in there somewhere. There are no Karstark guys. Are the Karstark lumped in with the Starks?
I don't know. I guess they're just lumped in with the northern forces. No, I went through and I noted every single person in the room.
Mm-hmm, go ahead.
So obviously, you know, like everybody you can think, like main character wise, is there. You know, and I'm saying Varys is there, Theon is there, Brienne is there, Sansa's there, Arya's there for some reason. You know, like everybody's there. Now the non-main characters who are there, the main Dothraki dude who has become like
Quono, I think his name is Quono.
Oh really? All I know is he's the guy that when they capture Dany, he's making jokes about her, but he's not killed. He's not the one that's killed later on.
No, I think he's one of the lieutenants of the guy that is killed.
Yeah. So he he's not one of the Cals, but he's like when they first arrive, they have like the 2 guys have this conversation about Dany's pubic hair or something, and one of those guys is murdered by Jorah in the street, and then the other one becomes like Dany's like main go-to like Dothraki dude.
Right.
So like whenever she has a random scene where the Dothraki show up, like he's the one that comes forward to like represent the Dothraki. Mm-hmm. He's in the back of the room, so you can kind of see him like in the back. Alice Karstark is there. Lyanna Mormont's there.
Of course.
Bronzion Royce is there.
Of course.
But other than that, like none of the Northern Lords are there. Like none of the ones that you know Lyanna insults right before she declares John King of the North. Like none. Like so. I don't know who's commanding them. I guess Lyanna or Alice Karstark, you know, or Brienne. They just hand over their forces to them, but they were not in the room as far as I could tell. And then Bronzion is, I guess, representing the entire Vale or something.
I'm surprised the Vale forces don't have that many people with them.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Is it should be, considering that they are after Dany's forces, so without a doubt the number 1 force there should be the Dothraki.
Yes,
there should be more Dothraki than anything, and then after that I would say it should be the Vale forces, but we're not quite sure because we're getting varying numbers on the Vale forces, but but it should be they should number around 10,000, and then the Unsullied are, you know, in the thousands as well. So. And then after that, you've got everybody else who have nobody. Like Lyanna Mormont has what, like 5 people?
She had like 100 people at during the beginning of the Battle of the Bastards, and then I think the battle went down and she lost quite a few, and let's say she has 50.
Right. So it's like somehow a woman who has 50 gets to be in the room, but all of these Vale Lords who are controlling thousands. Or you know, all of these, or even, you know, I guess Alice Karstark's in there, but say Wyman Manderly. Like Wyman Manderly would have, he didn't show up to the Battle of the Bastards, so he should have like more forces. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not in the room, but whatever. They don't base it on that. They base it on, is this a character that the audience knows?
Right. And I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because only book people are really looking for this, like you and me included. Because I was wondering, who the fuck is that? If that's Karstark, where are her troops? Why aren't her troops, like, actually highlighted? But you could also argue that, everybody's under the Stark banner who's in the north. So yeah. I would also argue that the Northern Lords are in their own keeps and they've sent enough men to help out Winterfell, but at the same time keep order in their own holds.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they don't. I mean, logically speaking, they don't need to be there, right?
Right.
For honor's sake, like a lot of people go, like in the War of the Five Kings, like for honor's sake, these people would go. And sometimes to command their own forces, sometimes not. But eventually, if you're down to
command their own forces in a foreign land, they went with Robb south, but this is the battle in the north.
Right. But but now you're down to like there's one family member left. Like the entire house is like, the entire house is based on like one person left, and maybe they're being a little more conservative.
Well, to be fair, to Alex Karstark being there, since I just ragged on her, the Carhold is further up north, and as we've seen with Last Hearth, further up north is kind of like no man's zone at this point.
Oh yeah, dangerous.
So
area, right.
yeah, like you mentioned Manderley. Manderley, what's that? What's his hold?
White Harbor.
White Harbor is a little more south. So
And he should have the escape route. Like should they need to retreat, they should go to out Manderley's by ship or whatever. They probably. Who knows what they'll do, but
they'll probably Yara. I'm sure Yara's gonna come in at the very last second to help them out, try to get them to escape. But so we did skip all the way to the war room scene, but I will say I did like the war room scene. I do like that we're actually fucking seeing battle positions being laid out. This is something I've wanted to see since season 2 with Robb. We kind of saw a bit of it in season 1 when Robb went against Tywin for the first time. But I do like it, and it's also I think the first time we've ever seen this many, well, what's left of them, main characters in a room together, ever.
Yeah, it was crowded. It was crowded.
It really looks crowded.
Some people definitely need to be killed off.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, I just look. I think that every secondary character is going to be killed off, and I think the primary characters are not.
Well, we discussed this in the pregame. Like I feel like some of the characters that will be killed off is Grey Worm, because have you ever seen that Schwarzenegger movie where he has the best lines? He goes, "Remember when I said I killed you last? I lied." You know what I'm talking about? You know which one that is? Commando. So in Commando, the general comes to Schwarzenegger and he says, "Don't worry, you'll be protected. I put some of my two of my finest guys here. They're a few days from retirement." And then they die in the next scene. I feel like Grey Worm is gonna die based on that logic from Commando, where he's already making retirement plans with Missandei. That is the total number one hint that you are good as gone.
Yeah, no, it's. I do remember. God, I forget if it's Lethal Weapon 2, where Mel Gibson is joined by some kid, and he's like, "Oh, today's my birthday." And he's like, "Really? How old are you?" And he's like, 21 or 22 or something. And he's like, "Great." And then, of course, he gets shot. And Mel Gibson's just like, "Well, happy birthday."
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, like anything to make it sad.
Right. So based on that, which characters here are good as gone based on the fact that they're either going into retirement after this fight or they just have no more story left? I would say Varys.
Yes.
Varys is definitely done because, I mean, what is there left for him to do? He's completed his entire mission, which is Targaryen restoration. He's kind of completed it. He got Dany to Westeros, which was his plan, right? Yeah. And who else is left? Well, looking here, Theon. Theon has had his redemption arc.
Well, yeah, but Theon, I think Theon is too big of a character to kill yet. I think that he still needs to go up against Euron.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Unless they're going to, kill him off and make that a Yara plot. But I do think that he needs to, go up against Euron. And I still think he's too big of a character to kill off yet. I think they're really going to delay it. So I think that Grey Worm, I think Varys, I think
Tormund?
I think Tormund, Beric.
Beric.
Are both definitely Beric.
Beric and the Hound really have kind of outlived their usefulness. I feel like Beric.
Right, but the Hound, they're saving for frickin' Clegane Bowl.
Right, good point. So
you can't kill the Hound.
Not
but
yet.
You're definitely 100% dying is Beric. Beric is 100% dead. I would say that 95% sure that Grey Worm's dead.
95. I would bet on that.
Yeah, I would put 85% for Varys. Then going down into the other, I would say that I'm putting 50-50 on Jorah.
Jorah, we discussed this in the pregame. Jorah is most definitely going to die this season because there is nothing left for this character to do but die.
I think Podrick.
Podrick is also a good one, yeah.
I think Podrick's gonna die. I mean, obviously, Bronzion, probably even Lyanna Mormont. The audience loves Lyanna Mormont so much, or they think the audience loves Lyanna Mormont so much. I don't know if they actually have these test reactions, or they're just like, oh,
yeah, right.
We just know that the audience loves Lyanna Mormont, so we're just gonna have her come back over and over again because.
Well, she can come back over and over again as a white. Oh.
No. Oh.
Whoa.
That's another discussion I wanted to have actually about so the Azor Ahai prophecy.
Go ahead.
And how it's about how Azor Ahai has to plunge a sword into the heart of the woman he loves, Nissa.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, what if he has to plunge the sword into the undead, Nissa,
And who's going to do this? I'm plunging.
Whatever. Maybe, I mean, if they really wanted to shock us, they'd kill Dany and bring her back as a white, and then riding her undead dragon. But I don't know if they're going to be that bold.
Someone was saying, is it possible for Valyrians to even be brought back because they do have a bit of magic in them, somewhat, and would that Night King ability work on them?
If a dragon can come back, everybody can come back.
That's a good point.
Oh, but I wanted to ask, by the way, do you think that they're gonna forget that they have undead giants, or do you think undead giants are coming?
I think we don't have enough in the budget for that. I don't know. That would be fucking cool.
But we already saw them, but what's funny is if they're not in the battle. You're like, what happened to them?
Yeah, wasn't there a scene last season, I think, early on, where they were showing the Army of the Dead, and we did see giants?
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
We're not getting spiders, by the way.
We saw the undead giants, but then later when they were on their freaking island of convenience, there was no giants. So. I don't know.
Well, if there were giants while they're on that island of convenience, everybody would be bitching. Well, why did the giants just pick up large rocks and throw it at them? So,
right, yeah, they'd be like, why aren't the giants breaking through the ice? They're heavy.
Actually, I was gonna ask you this: besides the Night King and his amazing javelin throwing skills, can the whites shoot arrows, or are they just
They're all carrying those javelins, so in the last scene, so I assume that everybody's got good javelin abilities.
What? No, the White Walkers are carrying the javelins.
Oh, whites.
Mm-hmm. Wait, the whites were carrying the javelins?
No, they were all White Walkers.
Yeah.
I've never seen a white use a melee weapon. We've only seen them with swords.
Well, they just kind of run at everybody via the what's that? Dawn of the Dead style zombies, the most recent one from 2004. They all just kind of run at everybody all crazy so overwhelming with numbers is their main strategy. But right. So yeah, I think Jorah's dead. I think Jorah is definitely there's nothing left for him to do though. I feel like there's something left for Davos to do, but
yeah, Davos could be killed too unless they need him. I'd say 50-50 on Davos. I think Daenerys' assistant or Dothraki assistant dead. It's just all these extra people, we can just start killing them off. you know.
Well, Preston, we did overshoot a little. We
Right.
were supposed to talk about the scene with Jorah and Dany, then Jorah and then Sansa and Dany. So Jorah convinces Dany to go easy on Tyrion, and she finally accepts his advice because Jorah is her most trusted advisor. And then Sansa goes downstairs and talks to Dany goes downstairs and talks to Sansa, and they have a nice little conversation
on Jorah's request for some reason.
Right. And they have a night.
As if has Jorah ever talked to Sansa in his life?
I don't think so.
No.
And they have a nice little conversation. I did like that bit about, John's the other guy or love, admired and all that. And she goes, "Who's the first one?" He's much taller. Like, oh, it's a Khal Drogo. Oh, that was cute.
Yeah, I guess he was referring to Khal Drogo, but it's funny though because I guess it works with Khal Drogo. I was wondering if, when she said it, I was like, is she referring to Jorah or is she referring to Khal Drogo? But I guess she was referring to.
I thought it was Khal Drogo, but you made a
because he's so tall.
You made a point. Sansa makes no sense because you put up a clip from the first season where Great John Umber declares Robb king in the North, and he did say the dragons were the ones we bowed to, and now the dragons are dead. Dragons are right here. So you could also argue that Sansa wasn't there for that scene. She wasn't there.
Yeah, that would be the argument that she wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Though she does weirdly say, "Oh, we said we'd never bow again." She might just be pulling stuff out of her ass.
Right.
I rewatched the Lyanna Mormont declaration scene, and kingship comes out of nowhere. She essentially just references herself, so she's like, "We believe that there's no king in the North and their name is Stark." And then she refers back to it. She sent that letter and then she refers back to that letter.
Right.
Everybody else in the room must be like, what the hell is she talking about? Because we didn't read that letter. The only people that read that letter are Stannis and Jon. But she starts, saying
Well, she was saying it for the audience because the audience read that letter. Come on, Preston.
Right. The audience did, right. But Lyanna Mormont doesn't really have much logic for declaring Jon King of the North, but she does. Unlike Great John Umber, who has a logic. His logic being, we bowed to the dragons, and the dragons are dead, and so we should really be independent. Mm-hmm. But Lyanna Mormont doesn't really have it. She's just like, well, we know no king other than
a Stark.
The king, the king of the North, whose name is Stark.
I'm gonna go ahead and assume that ever since the War of Five Kings began and they declared Robb king of the North, that was because the North has always been unruly. Stannis even says it to Jon in that same scene where he had Lyanna's letter. And the North, you can kind of tell that they've always wanted to do their own thing, but I always feel like they never did because either the Targaryens were there or Ned was in charge, and Ned is good friends with Robert, so therefore blah 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 blah. I think what Sansa's trying to say here is that they want to go back to being independent, like they declared several years ago. But I don't know how. I don't think she's thought this out. How does an independent North work with the rest of Westeros? How does that even go about?
Yeah, that's the thing, is sometimes they touch on these things and it doesn't, the logistics aren't there.
Because it could work, though, if you think about it. Dorne kind of has a similar thing going on. Dorne is even though it's a part of Westeros, they're also their own thing.
Right. And this actually came up with Renly. So Renly and Robb's peace agreement was
it would have been.
Well, it would have been. We weren't really Catelyn kind of agrees to it without knowing if Robb would agree to it.
Right.
Which was essentially, you have to pay fealty to Renly, though Renly will let you keep the title king, even though you're not really a king. That was Renly's deal. You still have to be fealty. You still have to have your fealty to the Iron King, the Iron Throne, but you can call yourself king as a title. So that was so who knows? Maybe something similar, but we have no idea if Robb or his bannermen would have accepted that. But Catelyn seems to accept it as because she's trying to do whatever she can for peace, and to win. So. Mm-hmm. Maybe that kind of situation would work, but It's all about taxes, right?
Ultimately, it comes down to taxes and making sure things in the North are all... Because everything in the North is normally quiet. Almost nothing really happens in the North, if you really think about it. Most of the realm's problems usually happen down south.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, during the 300 years of Targaryen rule that we kind of know about, of unity, yeah, most of the problems were in Dorne. And then the Blackfire
most of the
Rebellion.
problems were in Dorne, or they either came from the Targaryens being in power and getting a little too antsy with everything.
Right, and the Targaryens causing problems amongst themselves.
If any rebellions did come out, if there were any like major disputes, it was either the Ironborn trying to raid everybody again, or that one time House Aaron started a rebellion, and like that one time House Baratheon did this, and this. But it's mostly been Targaryens.
I mean, you're right that there are other problems. Like the Faith of the Seven causes its issues. The Targaryens cause their issues amongst themselves. Vulture, but when you're talking about like the Dornish and their Vulture Kings and their wars was probably the main thing. But you're right that the North
really keeps to themselves.
It's not that there hasn't historically been problems in the North, but much less so than the other areas. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that Dany scene, Dany and Sansa, that quickly changes. Like you see, and we see this later on when Dany has the conversation with Jon in the crypts. She's really geared towards this whole like being queen of the Seven Kingdoms. And quite frankly, I don't blame her. A lot of people are getting on her case by saying like the most shocking thing she heard all day was that there might be someone who has a claim to the Iron Throne. Now that she's been fucking her nephew. No. There might be someone in the claim of throne. And I got to defend Dany on this. Like, when your entire life, you've been tailored to want this one thing. That's what you need to have. It's what you have. It's what you got to have. It's what's owed to you. I mean, it's almost like indoctrination in a sense, right?
Well, I mean, that's all Viserys did, right? That was his entire life. Mm-hmm. And everything he talked about for years and years and years. Realistically, I don't think a human being could possibly, could get over it that quickly. So it's completely understandable that Dany, wants the Iron Throne. Like it's her raison d'etre, her reason for being, So it's like Sansa's attachment to independence is a little weirder.
It is
because it was never her idea, mm-hmm. and it doesn't give her any more power. Unless they plan on demoting Jon back to Lord. Like, she's Lady of Winterfell. She stays Lady of Winterfell. Jon, who knows what he is, Warden of the North. So whether she's under the Seven Kingdoms or whether she's under the North, she's still in the same position.
Right. And after that, we get Sansa and Theon meeting back up. And I love what you said. You've never been Ramsayed before, so you'll allow it.
Yeah. Like it seems a little weird, like their sudden attachment to each other in this episode. But
the last time they saw each other, he was defending her from the Bolton hunting party.
Yes.
So,
and granted, like they had that rocky relationship. Because she didn't feel he was defending her enough, and she was still getting over the fact that Theon didn't actually like kill her brothers, but killed some random boys instead, and stuff like that. And then the minute he helps her to escape, and things like that, yes, there's some attachment, but or maybe some forgiveness or whatever, but we don't really know how. Like, Sansa must have odd, complicated feelings for Theon. And now he's back, and they're the only ones that have been through similar experience of having been through Ramsay together.
Well, to be fair, yeah, like their torture at the hands of Ramsay really did make them closer. But I also feel like with the whole thing Jon's been doing and what Arya did to her last season, I feel like Theon right now, and with how Bran is being a robot and being so detached, I feel like Theon is the only family she really has right now, which is telling because they don't share any blood, but Theon's been more of a brother to her than Jon has been in a while, the way she feels, than Arya, especially after the last season. which came out, which it's just weird because I love how Arya says, we're going episode 1 now. Arya says to Jon, she's the smartest person I know. Really? Because you're about to kill her last season. So,
yeah.
And I understand the whole, like, because someone asked me, you know, how can Sansa be okay with just forgiving Theon just like that after everything he did? I think I think Theon has paid in spades for what he did.
Yeah. Yeah, and they did grow up together. Granted, you know, we don't really know very much about Theon and Sansa's relationship growing up. In the book, we the only thing Theon says about it is that he kind of hoped that Ned Stark would have married him off to Sansa. Like, he kind of thought in the back of his mind that was going to happen. But of course, you know, it doesn't. Like, Sansa's going to get married off to Joffrey. But you know, that was kind of a weird thing in his brain. Now, of course, you know, I don't know if you know, all of a sudden there's probably shippers like wondering if Theon and Sansa can be together, and it's like, I mean, in a Grey Worm Missandei sort of way. But, you know, I think they're just, you know, they grew up together and they went through a similar experience together. So I guess it's, you know, it's natural that they would gravitate towards each other.
Right.
And as you said, there's no one else to gravitate towards.
Before we get to the last couple of scenes, which is what I really want to talk about as well, you kind of got flack a little bit for calling Gilly fat.
Oh, no, I was just making a joke because the actress is clearly pregnant.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. I mean, it's the actress. That's why I said she's either pregnant or she's been eating
Sam's diet.
No, she's clearly pregnant in real life. I mean, she's probably had her kid now.
Honestly,
it's very obvious.
I don't give a flying hell. Like, I just really, I hate the fact that they even brought Gilly up. You made a fantastic point as well. Like, I saw your video. You made a fantastic point. Why is Gilly even in Winterfell? Why would she even bring her kid here? Like, I don't get it. Like, especially with winter coming. Like,
right, like leave him in Riverrun or something. Leave him, not Riverrun, but leave him somewhere, a random inn. Leave him at Horn Hill. But you're right. But don't bring them all the way up. I mean, that's the thing is did he not have in the back of his head that the White Walkers were chasing after him for a baby that he stole from them? Like, is he not thinking about that? Like, they spent like a week in the wilderness, like running from Whites and White Walkers, from Craster's Keep. Like, it hasn't occurred to him that like that the child is a target.
Well, I doubt the child's a target, not anymore at least, because I don't think we'll ever get to see what the White Walkers really do with those kids. Because there's not going to be that. It would be really silly to watch a White Walker baby like walking around. Like, come on, that's kind of fucking silly.
I mean, if it were George R.R. Martin writing the episode, I'd be like, oh, you know what they've done is they've set up the fact that the White Walkers are coming from Bran, and what they're really coming for is baby Sam. Like, that would be a cool setup. That you've set up one thing and you're going to do another, but D&D's writing is actually more predictable. They'll set up like, oh, you know, they're coming for Bran, and then they'll come for Bran. You know, like I was really like, God, when we were doing like season 7, and they said, okay, we're gonna bring this gold to King's Landing from Highgarden. I was like, oh, that means the gold's never gonna make it. But no, it made it, and I was like, what? Like, that's not how narratives work. If an announced plan doesn't happen, like, it never happens in George R. R. Martin's books. If you announce something's going to happen, it's not going to happen.
That's how you know they're not going by the books anymore.
Right. Yeah. And so here they're like, oh, they're going to go for Bran. And I do think that the Night King's going to go for Bran, and they're going to shoot fire on the Night King, and then he's going to not be affected by the fire or something.
Well, in the preview, we do see Theon in the Godswood shooting flaming arrows. So. Yeah.
And I also think that I think there's a line in the preview that says the dead's already here. It does sound like the dead in the crypts are going to come alive.
So that was one of the major theories that no one will shut the fuck up about. Bro, everybody in the crypts is already dead because... And I think you made a great point. Like, isn't there like a stone slab on top of that? Like,
there should be a stone slab, but it's already kind of weird that skeletons are able to like have strength when you need a muscle to actually like propel a bone someplace.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, even the undead that we did... didn't Jojen get killed by a skeleton?
Yes. Well, he got killed by like an exploding Pokeball.
What? Oh no, that is what ultimately killed him. But before that, he was getting stabbed by something.
Yeah, he was getting attacked, and by the skeleton.
See, it makes sense because, and I'm gonna chime in here with some Lord of the Rings. In Lord of the Rings, at the very last movie, when Gandalf is at Gondor, and I think it was Pippin who wonders, why is the sky getting so dark as the army of Sauron marches forward? And Gandalf says, well, because, they don't like the sunlight. It would make sense as to why the Night King needs to wait until winter to make this assault happen, because otherwise the dead will just kind of melt and like they would rot away. The cold keeps them intact. That would make a lot of sense. Right. But like everybody's saying like, oh, they're the crypts. Everybody's in the crypts is dead because the skeleton's gonna rise. But the stone slab, though, like they're not superhuman. They don't have superhuman strength.
Right, but then again, they were able to break out of the ice. Outside of the tree. They're punching up through the ice and stuff like that.
Is ice stronger than stone slabs?
No, but it's still strong. I mean, you're right. These stone slabs are like, but can't you imagine some like shot of like, the stone sliding over and
I can imagine sliding. Some they won't slide over, but what they'll do is like you'll hear like clear rumblings happening in the tombs.
I mean, it might also be that we know that there's subterranean tunnels underneath Winterfell. It might be that they've come in from the crypts rather than the dead in the crypts coming alive. That they found a way in. That's certainly possible.
That would be fucking crazy if literally everybody in the crypts, Gilly, the baby, Varys, Tyrion, like, holy shit, that would be crazy.
I mean, we see. I guess they just show Arya running, but you're right that something's got to happen in those crypts, right?
Right. Oh, speaking of which, I wanted to get this out of the way. Arya and Gendry. I love what you said about them two getting together. The most insane, strange thing that nobody can really comprehend is two people who are not related to each other getting together.
Yeah, having consensual sex. Yeah. I don't understand like these comments and weirdness where everyone's like, oh my god. And I've heard different justifications. They're like, oh well, it's like my little sister. And it's like, no, it's not. She's not your fucking little sister. You're not paying attention to anything in the story if you think she's a little sister. And then people are like, well, she looks young. And I was like,
she does.
No,
you gotta give him that. She looks like not only that, but you watched her grow up. So it's that extra layer of.
Yeah, but this is the weird thing is I've seen these articles a lot where they're like some clickbait article will be like, childhood girls who grew up to be like super hot. They show like the girl from Boy Meets World or whatever in a bikini and you're supposed to be like, oh my god, so weird. It's like on one hand. Maybe, but on the other hand, that's what human beings do. Like human beings, every single human being grows up and like becomes sexual. Like, I mean, yeah, okay, there are these asexual people out there, but I'm saying 99% of people grow up and become sexual beings. Like that's what is natural. And be like, oh, well, I watched her. Well, get over it, okay? This is what human beings do. Like, you could walk down the street and you could see a baby in a carriage, and you know what's going to happen in frickin' 20 years? That baby's going to be fucking. Because that's the nature of humanity. Like, this show's been on for a long time. Maisie Williams is old. Arya is now old. Like, they're allowed to fucking have sex. You know, like now some people are like, well, how much time has gone past in the show? Well, that you can't use that because nobody knows how much time has gone past in the show. It's anywhere from 1 year to 40 years. We have no idea how much time has gone past in the show. Gilly's baby is still a toddler for some reason, but like, you know, but at the same time, people have crossed the continents like 17 times. So a lot of time has gone by. So I don't get it. I don't understand why people have a problem with it.
That will be, no matter how much you love Game of Thrones, that will be, for years to come, that will be the one main criticism no one, not even a diehard fan of the show, can defend. Time is awful. They display time in a very awful way. They do. They fucking do. Yeah. I mean,
it's just completely inconsistent. Like two characters like sitting next to each other, right?
So, and let's go with the last two scenes. So I really loved when they all sit around. You know, Tormund, Brienne, Jaime, Tyrion, Podrick, and Sir Davos. I really love like that, them just hanging out. Tormund telling the story about the time, you know, he killed the giant supposedly, and you know, Podrick just.
I definitely. I mean, I thought that the giant story was funny. I did like the way that Tormund delivered it. It was. I mean, I laughed thoroughly at and I do have to say, like, Nikolai Coster, whatever. His fucking deadpan, just like response to Tormund was really good, and I have to say that they both have really good comic timing. They do. I laughed a lot at that, especially like I mean, I know that they reused the jokes. Like Tormund gets everybody's nicknames wrong, you know, like, oh, you're called Dog, you know, when he says to the Hound and stuff, you know, like. It's like, you're called King Killer.
King Killer.
You know, it's funny. I like that. It is funny.
You had a major problem with the way Jaime knighted Brienne, which, yes, let's be clear on one thing. I understand that, you know, he may not have said the whole thing, but
she's half a knight.
It was a very sweet moment. Come on. Like, when Tormund gets up and he's the first one to clap and the look on his face, and that's the biggest smile Brienne has had on her face since the show began, since her introduction back in season 2. Come on.
Yes. No, it's very, very sweet and sentimental scene. You know, it represents a lot, especially with, you know, because it's funny that people, you know, talk about the Brienne Jaime shipping, and it's like that scene probably meant more than if they like kissed. Everyone feels this connection between Jaime and Brienne, and so some people are like, well, maybe it's the connection is romance, and so like it would culminate with them making out or fucking. But it's funny, it felt more fitting and more culminated with with him knighting her than it would have with them having sex.
Right. And I'm glad we got to see that. It was a really good moment, and especially afterwards when Podrick starts to sing. I really like that song. I like the song Jenny of Oldstones coming from Podrick. Like at the ending, whoever sings the ending theme, that woman, I wasn't a fan of her singing it. I really like Podrick doing it.
Now I think they said inside the episode that it was very much based on Lord of the Rings.
Did they? I don't watch the stuff. I really don't. But yes, in the third movie, so we all know that the actor for Ned Stark, Sean Bean, he played Boromir. The guy, Boromir's brother, Faramir is supposed to go off and take back the neighboring the city adjacent to Minas Tirith. And he does this because he wants to, I guess, impress his father or prove something to his father. I forgot. It's been a while. And as he's rushing forward on the horses with his men, they're going to die. And Pippin knows this, and he sings his song. And it's a very sad song, very sad. And it reminded me a lot of that song.
Yeah, and then Faramir lives for some reason. But it is sad as the steward sends his son off to die, and then he sings the sad song. And it's, you know, it's a similar song.
Well, it was even more emotional because as he's singing it, it's a very somber song, and you also see that one scene in the trailer that we saw where Grey Worm and Missandei are kissing each other, and it really hits home because you know for a fact that after his retirement plan, And, you know, like, the love they have for each other has been building up over the seasons, and that last kiss of theirs, you know something's going to go down with this character in the last season. You know he's going to die.
Yeah. Now, the unfortunate thing is that, I mean, it was beautifully sung song, but unfortunately they didn't, the lyrics aren't really very good to the song. They're kind of simple.
I mean, I get, but the song was never finished. Like, it's sung in the books, but apparently they had to fill in some of the lines.
Well, just the first line is from the book. Yeah, and then the rest is just kind of...
So, supposedly, everybody's making the connection that Jenny's song, Jenny of Oldstones, she married a Targaryen named Duncan, and Duncan was so in love with her that he gave up his claim to the Iron Throne to be with her. And the next scene after the song is Dany and Jon in the crypts. Now, do you think there's going to be... Is this a bit of a foreshadowing for what Jon may do, give up his claim? Because they start to have this conversation about claim. Like, he brings it up. Like, I'm Aegon Targaryen, and she's not creeped out by that's the fact that she's had sex with her nephew. She's more...
The thing is... I don't think aunt, nephew, or uncle, niece is considered gross
in Westeros.
In medieval society. Right. No. So genetically speaking, you know, the whole aunt nephew is a little worse than cousins, but a little better than brother and sister. Like the amount of genetic material that you share, you know, like your cousin, you share 1/8 of their genetic material, while you share 50% of your genetic material with a sibling, and I think aunt nephew is 1/4, so it's like in between.
Right.
But certainly in the books, there are examples of uncle niece marriage, and so
give me one. I can't recall off the top of my head.
I think it's Alice Karstark. She is betrothed, or they want Cregan Karstark wants to steal Carhold by marrying her.
Isn't she promised to Tormund?
No. So what she does is she doesn't want to marry her uncle, and so she asks Jon for help. So he marries her to the Fen.
Oh, the Fen, the new Magnar.
The new Magnar. Right. Stir? Or maybe...
So, do you think this Jenny song is a foreshadowing for what Jon is going to do for Dany? Because he is in love with her. He does like her a lot. And he doesn't want to rule. You can tell. He doesn't really care.
It's odd that he becomes so depressed over it. Like, it shouldn't really be a thing, right?
Well, to be fair, like, he has so much on his fucking mind right now. I mean, he's about to go into battle against an enemy he's had for many years now. It's the whole basis of him getting, you know, being stabbed by his brothers at the Night's Watch. Like, he wants to try and save these people from this threat. And, like, this has been a goal of his to fight back against these things for the longest time. The longest time. Not to mention... something he's known his entire life has been a lie, and it's all dropped within the course of 24 hours.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't understand why everybody's putting the cart before the horse. Like, you know, let's focus on the fact that there's zombies out there before talking about, like, the politics of things. That's what I didn't get about Sansa's thing. Like, okay, after we beat the army of the dead and we beat Cersei, what then? Like, oh, Jesus Christ, like...
Well, she wants to plan ahead. There's this one guy who does amazing Game of Thrones art. I wish I could say this fucking guy's name. Let me try real quick. He messaged me on Twitter, and he thought that Bran telling Sam to tell Jon this whole parentage thing was going to bite them in the ass later, because Jon needs to have a clear head going into this stuff. It is Urtas Altanaz? Fuck, I do apologize. He has amazing Game of Thrones art. Like, I will link...
How do you spell that?
Let me link this to you right here. Are you on Facebook, or... where should I link this to? Facebook or Skype?
Oh, Facebook's fine.
Look at this. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen his art before. His art is fantastic. It's Spanish though, I believe, or is it?
I actually found that most of the fan artists are not American, you know.
But look at his art, bro. It looks so good.
Let's see here. Coming up. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah, impressive. Okay. Yeah.
He has. So that was his idea. His idea was that friggin' Sam telling Jon this before the battle was gonna ruin everything. And the fact that Jon told Dany right before the battle, I mean, is she more or less inclined to help now? Because if she wants to be Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, this is also her problem. But is she gonna be more inclined to let Jon die?
I mean, it's such a silly thing. I don't think so. I mean, I just think they're filling time with conflict where there wasn't really a conflict. Yeah. I don't, or it's one of those situations where you have a conflict and then you have action and then everything's resolved because there was some action, which they do in movies and stuff. God, I saw the movie Passenger where there's this brutal conflict in Passenger where I don't think any human being could get over it because the conflict that happens between the two protagonists, Jennifer Lawrence and Star-Lord, it's so fundamentally horrible. And I don't think anybody could get over it, but then they have an action sequence and then it's done. It's forgiven. And it just doesn't so I think that's what they're doing here is we have this conflict. We don't really know how to solve it. So we're just going to have an action sequence and then everyone will be over it,
Well, what did you think of the whole crypt scene? I thought it really annoyed the hell out of me. Another part that really annoyed the hell out of me in this episode was Tyrion and Bran. That was a conversation I've kind of been waiting for the longest time.
And then it happened off screen?
And then it happens off screen. Everything that's great happens off screen, of course. And with this episode, I mean, I felt that this is a conversation that really should have had. And you can tell she's really annoyed with him in the preview. Like, she even says, the dead are already here.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I was very frustrated about the bad history. Like, you should know that Rhaegar was not a rapist. Viserys should have told you that Rhaegar was not a rapist.
Well, you forget that Barristan also told her some stories as well.
He told her one story before he decided to wander the streets and get
right,
killed.
And I'm sure that he told her other things off screen.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Everything. We sure that happened off screen. I'm sure it all makes sense off screen. But that's the thing. It's like this. I guess what I wanted was this like the stories of Viserys that are so colorful that are supposedly the thing that is painting all of Daenerys' motivation, right? Her entire life is being, raised and instructed by Viserys, crafting her desires, and to just have it be, I don't know, just be off. Like, oh, who's that? Huh, that's weird. Like, no, this is like a fundamental story. This is your family. This is your brother. This is like a tale you've heard a million times. You've heard about how you need to retake the Iron Throne a million times. You should have been told the story of Rhaegar a million times.
Well, it makes more sense that obviously Viserys is going to sugarcoat everything.
Right.
He doesn't see his family
absolutely.
as the bad guys. I'm sure he didn't even see his... Is it in the books? Because he doesn't say anything in the show. In the books, is it known... Does he say anything? Is he self-aware that his father was insane?
No, that's never... The Nick... Well, So it's Dany mentions that the usurper and his dogs use the nickname Mad King, but it comes as a fairly big shock that he was actually insane. Like she knew the nickname, because Viserys told her the nickname that's what the usurpers and his dogs like use, but you know she knew, like it's all sugar coated, but that's the whole thing is like she's supposed to have the Targaryen perspective, and then there's supposed to be a Stark perspective, right? And then there's supposed to be conflict. So she should at least know that there's two sides to the story, or she should at least have the sugar-coated story. But she shouldn't just have the usurper story. That makes no sense. Like this is supposed to be a bedtime story that she's heard 1,000,000 times about her wonderful brother Rhaegar. You know.
Well, like I said, once you've been conditioned like that, and all of a sudden now everything has to change out of the blue, I do feel bad for Dany. Like this season has made me feel bad for her way more than it should, because she's kind of meeting the parents with Jon here, and everybody doesn't like her, and everybody has this history, and that she's really not privy to. But at the same time, she's been indoctrinated with this whole like take the Iron Throne thing, and now that she has an army and dragons, and it's like it should be within her grasp, but it's not. Then you have the problem of the undead coming. It's like this whole thing. Everybody's under stress, and everybody's just really kind of just out of their mind right now with the whole situation.
I mean,
so
I would have loved it, and granted this, I'm gonna sound biased, but there's kind of a wonderful little hint in the book that Dany is becoming like Viserys, and that she starts using the phrase "wake the dragon" and things like that, or the dragon does not kneel and things like that. You know, it's very like with Bilbo saying "my precious" and stuff. They could have done that, because you're right that she's having a tough time. Like, and I want to feel her. I want to feel her desire for the Iron Throne and how important it is. And and in that I want to hear echoes of Viserys. But granted, just because I like Harry Lloyd's Viserys so much that like I want to have like elements of that back again. So I would have liked more of that. Like what the stories that she told, rather than just the visions that Bran saw.
Well, to be fair, the show never really into more detail about what Viserys told her and what those stories really were. They never really went into much detail. After Viserys died, his memory from the show died with it, and he was seldom brought up.
Yeah, and it's too bad, because he is brought up all the time in the books. Like it's almost like any time she needs to like, how did she know that? And then she'll be like, well, her brother Viserys used to tell her about. I mean, it even gets to the part where like he used to tell her siege tactics. Like she knows all about battles and stuff. You're like, really? Like he would sit here and like tell like a 9-year-old girl like the thing about siege is you should build trebuchets.
And this is another mistake with Daenerys' character, is that they never really left the impact of her brother on her going forward into season 2 and beyond. They never really did that.
Yeah.
There's never a moment beyond season 2 where she goes, well, I know this because my brother used to tell me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is when you're, and that's the funny thing, because like, okay, the Stark children are raised by Ned, and it's like, how often is Ned evoked? And even Catelyn's evoked some, not as much as Ned, because everybody worships Ned. But even Catelyn's brought up a little bit. But like, Dany was raised by her brother. Like, her brother should be mentioned
Often.
Often.
Right.
Yeah.
So overall, like I said, episode 8, I really just liked the last third of it. I really did. To me, it warrants an 8. I thought the performances were great. All the right beats were hit for me. Jaime was awesome this episode. I love Podrick. It did feel the first third did feel like it was clipped away from episode 1, but at the same time, I really liked how the episode ended. I don't know. I just thought this being the last of the reunions we're gonna have for a long time. It was an episode that wasn't really bad. I really liked it, especially the ending is really what kills me inside. Like the ending is really what got to me. That really made me tear up just a tad, because that fucking song as he's singing it, and it just really reminds me a lot of the like Pippin song. It's just super somber and just super sad. I'm surprised you give it a friggin' 6. I'm surprised you give it a 6, whereas you would give episode 1 an 8.
Nah, in retrospect, I don't really want to give episode 1 an 8. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, do these episodes hold up on a rewatch? I mean, so it's not like I haven't watched the first couple episodes a few times through, but it's like, it's a lot of stopping and starting because it's like taking screen stills and rewatching a scene and things like that. It's like I haven't watched it like just letting it go.
That's wait, dude, don't do that. Yeah. Don't fucking like watch it normally and then like go back and take some stills.
Well, that's what I do. So I watch it the first time normally, and then I go back and I start getting my screenshots and I start like watching scenes like a little closer. But I haven't like watched it. Like watching it for the flow again to see what it's like on a second viewing. So we'll see.
Preston, let's wrap this up. We've gone in for an hour. Right. Sorry I wasted so much time.
Oh, no worries.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, leave your thoughts and questions down below. I'm curious to know what you guys thought of the episode. Preston, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. We will be back again next week for the Battle of Winterfell over on Preston's channel with the next episode of the Thrones podcast. Once again, SoundCloud, iTunes, leave us a review on those platforms. And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.